You know what's crazy? You're probably torturing yourself right now over something that doesn't even exist. I'm talking about staying in places, jobs, relationships where nobody wants you there. And here's the kicker. The reason you can't leave has nothing to do with them. It's all about the absolute nonsense you're telling yourself. And I'm going to show you exactly what that nonsense is and how to stop it cold. Because once you see what you're doing to yourself, you won't be able to unsee it. Listen, you're here because something's eating at you. Maybe it's a job where they don't appreciate you. Maybe it's a relationship where you're always the one trying. Maybe it's a friendship that feels one-sided. And you keep showing up, keep trying, keep hoping things will change. Here's what we're going to do today. I'm not going to give you some feel-good nonsense about knowing your worth or manifesting better energy. That's garbage. What I'm going to do is show you the exact mental mistake you're making, the specific or rational belief that's keeping you stuck, and then I'm going to teach you how to demolish it. See, most people think staying where you're not wanted is an emotional problem. They think you need to build confidence or heal your inner child or some other psychobabble. Wrong. This is a thinking problem. You're thinking something stupid, and your stupid thinking is creating your suffering. Here's what you're going to learn in the next 25 minutes. First, the one irrational belief that keeps you trapped, and how to spot it in your own head. Second, why your feelings are lying to you about what you need. Third, how to use disputation to break free from this pattern, literally arguing yourself out of it. Fourth, the practical steps to actually leave without the drama, without the guilt, without the excuses. And finally, how to make sure you never get stuck like this again. This isn't theory. I've used this with thousands of people, and it works. But you've got to be willing to look at your own thinking honestly. No excuses, no victim stories, just you being brutally honest about the nonsense you're telling yourself. Most people won't do this. They'd rather suffer than admit they're creating their own misery. But if you're still watching, you're not most people. So let's get into it. All right, let's get to the heart of this. Why do you actually stay where you're not wanted? You think it's complicated, but it's not. You're believing one simple lie. I must have their approval. I must keep this job. I must make this relationship work. I need them to want me. I call this masturbation, and yeah, I know how that sounds, but stay with me. It's when you take a preference and turn it into an absolute demand. You take something you want and convince yourself you need it to survive. Here's the truth. You don't need anything except food, water, shelter, and air. Everything else, it's a preference. You prefer to have a good job. You prefer to be in a loving relationship. You prefer to have friends who value you. But the minute you change that preference into a demand, I must have this or I can't be happy, you've trapped yourself. Think about it. When you tell yourself, I must stay at this job, what happens? You just made yourself powerless. Because now you can't leave, even when they treat you terribly. You've convinced yourself that leaving would be catastrophic, unbearable, the end of the world. But would it actually be the end of the world? Or would it just be uncomfortable, difficult, inconvenient? See, your brain doesn't know the difference between a real threat and an imagined one. When you think I must have this, your nervous system reacts like you're being chased by a lion. But you're not. You're just facing a difficult choice. Here's what I want you to do right now. Think about where you're staying that you're not wanted. Got it? Good. Now finish this sentence. I must stay because... What comes up? I must stay because I need the money. I must stay because I can't handle being alone. I must stay because what will people think? Whatever you just said, that's your irrational belief. That's the lie you're telling yourself. And I'm going to show you how to destroy it. But first, you need to understand something crucial. This belief feels true. It feels like you really do need whatever you're demanding. Your emotions are screaming at you that you must have it. But feelings aren't facts. Just because you feel like you need something doesn't mean you actually do. I had a client once who stayed in an abusive workplace for 7 years because he believed he must have financial security. Know what happened when he finally left? He found a better job in 3 weeks. 7 years of torture for a problem that took 3 weeks to solve. Why? Because he was treating a preference like a life or death necessity. Your thinking created your prison, and your thinking can set you free. The difference between preferences and demands is everything. When you prefer something, you're saying I'd like this, it would be nice, but I can live without it. When you demand something, you're saying, I must have this or I'll die, or I can't be happy or my life is ruined. Preferences give you power. Demands take it away. With a preference, you can evaluate whether something is actually good for you. With a demand, you're stuck. You have to have it no matter what, even if it's destroying you. And here's what's really crazy. Most of these demands aren't even conscious. You don't wake up and say to yourself, today I'm going to irrationally demand that my boss values me. It happens automatically. Your brain takes a normal desire, wanting to be appreciated, and cranks it up to a life or death demand. That's why you need to catch yourself. Every time you feel trapped, every time you feel like you can't leave a situation, ask yourself, am I demanding or preferring? Am I telling myself I must have this? Or am I acknowledging that I'd like it, but could survive without it? I worked with a woman who stayed in a friendship where she was constantly criticized and put down. When I asked her why she didn't end it, she said, but she's been my friend since high school. I can't just throw that away. Notice the demand hidden in there. I can't. She was telling herself she must maintain this friendship because of history, regardless of how it was affecting her now. So I asked her, why can't you? Show me the law of the universe that says you must keep friends from high school, even when they treat you poorly. And she couldn't, because there isn't one. She was making up a rule and then following it like it was absolute truth. This is what you're doing too. You're creating these invisible rules. I must be loyal. I must have financial security. I must not disappoint people. And then you're treating them like they're carved in stone. But you made them up. And what you made up, you can change. Now you might be thinking, okay, Albert, I get it. I'm demanding instead of preferring. But I feel like I need this. How do I deal with these feelings? Good question. Let's talk about why your emotions are lying to you. Here's something that's going to sound crazy. Your feelings about staying aren't telling you the truth. They're just echoing back the nonsense you're thinking. Most people have this backward. They think, I feel terrible, therefore this situation is terrible, therefore I'm trapped. Wrong. Here's what's actually happening. You're thinking something irrational. I must have their approval. That thought creates a disturbed feeling like anxiety, desperation, panic, and then you use that feeling as proof that you're right. It's circular. You're using your emotions to validate the very thoughts that created those emotions in the first place. Let me give you an example. You stay at a job where nobody respects you. Why? Because when you think about leaving, you feel terrified. That terror feels so real, so overwhelming that you think, see, I can't leave. Look how scared I am. But where did that terror come from? From your thought. If I leave, something awful will happen. I'll be broke. I'll be a failure. I'll prove I'm worthless. The feeling isn't telling you the truth about reality. It's telling you about your thinking. Here's the key. You can feel absolutely certain about something and be completely wrong. Feelings are not evidence. They're symptoms. Symptoms of what you're telling yourself. Think about a time you were convinced someone was mad at you. You felt it in your gut. You knew it was true. And then you found out they weren't mad at all. You were just reading into things. Your feeling was real. Your interpretation was garbage. Same thing here. Your anxiety about leaving? Real feeling. Your belief that leaving would be catastrophic? Garbage interpretation. Now, I'm not saying ignore your feelings. I'm saying examine the thoughts creating them. Because once you change the thought, the feeling changes automatically. If you change, I must have this job, or I'll be destroyed, to I'd prefer to have financial security, but I can handle discomfort and find another way. Watch what happens to your anxiety. It doesn't disappear, but it becomes manageable. It stops controlling you. Your feelings are important data. They're telling you that you're thinking something, but they're terrible decision makers. Don't let them run your life. I've seen people stay in miserable situations for decades because they trusted their feelings over their thinking. They felt like they couldn't survive without that person, that job, that situation. And their feelings were so intense, so convincing, that they never questioned them. Don't be that person. Question everything your emotions are telling you, especially the scary stuff, especially the I can't live without this stuff, because that's usually where the biggest lies are hiding. Let me tell you about something I call the ABC model. A is the activating event. Someone rejects you, your boss criticizes you, whatever. C is the consequence, your emotional reaction, your anxiety, your desperation. Most people think a cause is C. The event causes the feeling. But there's a B in the middle, your belief about the event. It's not the rejection that makes you feel desperate. It's what you believe about the rejection. If you believe I must have their approval, and this rejection proves I'm worthless, you're going to feel terrible. If you believe I prefer their approval, but I'm fine either way, you'll feel disappointed, but not devastated. Same event, different belief, completely different emotional consequence. This is huge, so I want to make sure you get it. Your feelings are not being caused by what's happening to you. They're being caused by what you're telling yourself about what's happening to you. Think about a breakup. Two people go through the same thing. Their partner leaves them. One person is devastated for months, convinced they'll never find love again, that they're unlovable, that their life is over. The other person is sad, takes time to grieve, and then moves on. Same event, different beliefs, different emotional outcomes. You have more control over your emotions than you think. Not complete control. You can't just decide to feel happy when something bad happens. But you can change your thinking, and when you change your thinking, your feelings change too. They might not change instantly, but they change. So when you're feeling trapped, when you're feeling like you can't leave, stop and ask, what am I telling myself right now? What belief is creating this feeling? And then ask, is that belief true? Where's the evidence? Is it helping me? Which brings me to the most important part, how to actually change these beliefs. Because knowing they're irrational isn't enough. You need to actively dispute them. You need to argue with yourself like your life depends on it, because in a way, it does. Okay, this is where we get practical. You've got an irrational belief. Let's say it's I must stay at this job because I need the money and I'll never find anything else. Now we're going to tear that belief apart using something I call disputation. Disputation is simple. You argue with yourself like you're a lawyer cross-examining a lying witness. You challenge every piece of your irrational thinking until it falls apart. Here's how it works. Take your belief and ask these questions. First, where's the evidence? You say you must stay at this job. Really? Show me the law of the universe that says you must. Show me the evidence that you'll die if you leave. Show me proof that no other opportunities exist. You can't, because there isn't any. You're making it up. Second, is this logical? Does it make sense that because you want financial security, you must therefore stay in a place that's destroying you? Does it follow that because leaving would be uncomfortable, it's therefore impossible? No, the logic doesn't work. Your jumping from this would be hard to this is impossible. That's not logic. That's catastrophizing. Third, is this helping you? Even if your belief was true, which it isn't, is it helping you? Is telling yourself, I must stay, making you feel better? Is it solving your problems? Is it making you more capable? No, it's making you miserable, resentful, and powerless. So even if we pretend your belief is valid, it's still useless. Now, here's where people mess this up. They think disputation is about positive affirmations or talking nicely to themselves. Wrong. This is about being ruthlessly honest and logical. You're not trying to feel better. You're trying to think better. The feeling better comes later. Let me show you what vigorous disputation sounds like. I must have their approval. Really? Says who? Where's that written? People have lived entire lives without certain people's approval. Are they all dead? No. So clearly you don't need it. You want it. Big difference. But I'll feel terrible if they don't want me. So what? You'll feel uncomfortable. You felt uncomfortable before and survived. Discomfort isn't death. It's just discomfort. Are you really going to let discomfort run your entire life? But what if I can't find anything better? What if you can? What if you find something amazing? What if staying is what's preventing you from finding better? You're fortune-telling the future based on zero evidence. That's not wisdom. That's neurosis. See how this works? You're not being mean to yourself. You're being logical. You're demanding evidence for claims your brain is making without proof. Do this enough, and something interesting happens. The irrational belief starts to lose its power. It doesn't disappear. Irrational thinking is stubborn, but it stops controlling you. I want you to practice this. Write down your must statement. Then ask, where's the evidence? Is this logical? Is this helping me? And answer honestly, not with feelings, with facts. This takes practice. Your brain will fight you. It'll say, but I really do need this. That's when you dig deeper. You keep disputing until you get to the truth. It's a preference, not a need. It would be nice, but you'll survive without it. One more thing. Disputation works best when you do it out loud. Literally argue with yourself like you're in a debate. It sounds crazy, but it forces your brain to confront the absurdity of what it's been telling you. Try it. Right now. Say your irrational belief out loud, then challenge it. I must stay at this job. No, you don't. I need their approval. No, you don't. Keep going until you hear how ridiculous it sounds. I remember working with a guy who was convinced he needed his father's approval to feel okay about himself. He was 43 years old, successful by any measure, but still trying to get his dad to say he was proud of him. So I made him say it out loud. I need my father's approval to be okay. And then I asked him, do you? Will you literally die without it? Have you been okay for the past 43 years, even though you haven't gotten it? The look on his face when he realized he'd been chasing something he didn't actually need. It was like watching someone walk out of a prison they didn't know they could leave. He'd been so focused on the feeling of needing it that he never stopped to question whether the need was real. That's what disputation does. It breaks the spell. It interrupts the automatic thinking that's been running your life. But here's the thing. You have to do it over and over. Once isn't enough. Your irrational beliefs have been with you for years, maybe decades. They're not going to disappear because you disputed them once. Every time the thought comes back, and it will, you dispute it again. Where's the evidence? Is this logical? Is this helping me? Eventually, your brain gets the message. The belief loses its grip, and you start to think more clearly. Now you know how to dispute. But knowing and doing are different things. Let's talk about the actual practical steps to leave where you're not wanted without falling back into your old patterns. Okay, you've disputed your irrational beliefs. You've realized you're demanding instead of preferring. You're ready to leave. Now what? Here's where most people screw up. They try to feel differently before they act differently. They wait until they're confident, until the fear goes away, until they're ready. Don't wait. Act while you're still uncomfortable. Because if you wait to feel ready, you'll wait forever. Here's your practical plan. Step 1. Make the decision. Now I'm thinking about it. Now I'll see how things go. You decide. Today, I'm leaving this situation. Full stop. The moment you make a clear decision, everything else gets easier. Step 2. Set a timeline. Vague plans don't work. Someday I'll leave means never. Pick a date. 3 months. 6 weeks. 2 weeks. I don't care what it is, but make it specific. Write it down. Why? Because a deadline creates urgency, and urgency overcomes procrastination. Step 3. Take one small action immediately. Don't wait until you've figured out the whole plan. Do something today. Update your resume. Look at job listings. Have one conversation. The action doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. Why? Because action creates momentum, and momentum kills anxiety. When you're moving forward, your brain has less time to catastrophize. Step 4. Keep disputing while you act. Your irrational beliefs aren't going to disappear just because you made a plan. They're going to come back, loud and obnoxious. Every time they show up, dispute them again. I can't do this. Yes, you can. It's too risky. It's uncomfortable, not impossible. Over and over. Step 5. Tolerate the discomfort. This is crucial. Leaving where you're not wanted is going to feel bad. You're going to feel guilty, scared, uncertain. That's normal. Don't try to make those feelings go away. Just let them be there while you keep moving forward. You don't need to feel confident to act. You just need to act. Confidence comes after, not before. I had a guy once who stayed in a toxic friendship for years because he didn't want to hurt the other person's feelings. Every time he thought about ending it, he felt overwhelming guilt. So I told him, feel the guilt and do it anyway. Guilt isn't a stop sign. It's just a feeling. He ended the friendship. Felt terrible for 2 weeks. Then, relief. Freedom. He couldn't believe he'd waited so long. Step 6. Don't explain yourself to death. When you leave, people are going to ask why. You don't owe them a dissertation. Keep it simple. This isn't working for me anymore. I'm pursuing other opportunities. I need to make a change. That's it. The more you explain, the more you're inviting them to argue with you. Don't give them that power. You've already made step 7. Build a support system. Find at least one person who supports your decision. Not someone who's going to enable your irrational thinking, but someone who will remind you of the truth when your brain starts lying to you. Someone you can call when you're wavering, when the fear kicks in, when you're tempted to go back. Step 8. Expect setbacks. You might waver. You might doubt yourself. You might even go back temporarily. That doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're human. Just keep disputing, keep moving forward. Every step, even the backwards ones, teaches you something. Here's what I want you to do today. Pick one action from this list and do it. Not tomorrow. Today. Even if it's small. Even if you're scared. Especially if you're scared. Because here's the truth. You're not going to think your way out of this. You're going to act your way out while you're still thinking about it. Action precedes motivation. You don't wait to feel motivated, then act. You act, and motivation follows. You take one step, and that step makes the next step easier. And before you know it, you're out. You're free. You're wondering why you waited so long. But there's one more thing we need to cover, because I don't want you doing this again. I don't want you leaving this situation only to end up in another one just like it. So let's talk about how to break the pattern forever. Here's the thing nobody wants to hear. If you don't fix the root problem, you're just going to end up in another situation where you're not wanted. Different job, different person, same pattern. So let's fix the root. The real reason you stay where you're not wanted isn't just about that specific situation. It's about a deeper belief that you need other people's approval to be okay. That your worth depends on whether people want you around. This is the big one, and it's complete garbage. Listen carefully. You're not your accomplishments. You're not your relationships. You're not your job title or how many people like you or whether you succeed or fail. You're a human being who exists. That's it. You don't need to earn your worth. You already have it by virtue of being alive. I call this unconditional self-acceptance, and it's different from self-esteem. Self-esteem is conditional. It says, I'm worthwhile when I succeed, when people like me, when I'm doing well. So what happens when you fail? When someone rejects you? Your self-esteem crashes. Unconditional self-acceptance says, I'm a fallible human being who sometimes succeeds and sometimes fails, and that's fine. My worth doesn't change either way. This is the antidote to approval seeking. When you accept yourself unconditionally, you stop needing other people to validate you. You want their approval. Sure, it's nice, but you don't need it. Here's how this applies to staying where you're not wanted. When you don't need approval, you can leave the moment it's clear someone doesn't value you. You're not trying to convince them. You're not trying to prove your worth. You're just recognizing this isn't a good fit and moving on. So how do you develop unconditional self-acceptance? First, stop rating yourself as a person. You can rate your behaviors. I did a good job on that, or I messed that up, but stop rating your entire self. You're too complex to be summed up as good or bad. You're a human. Sometimes you do things well. Sometimes you don't. That's it. Second, stop demanding perfection. You're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be rejected. That doesn't make you defective. It makes you human. Every person who's ever lived has failed at things. Welcome to the club. Third, practice accepting discomfort. Most approval seeking comes from trying to avoid the discomfort of rejection. But rejection is just uncomfortable. It's not dangerous. The more you practice tolerating that discomfort, the less power it has over you. I'm not saying you should become indifferent to what people think. I'm saying don't let what they think determine your worth or your decisions. You know what happens when you accept yourself unconditionally? You become free. You stop chasing people who don't want you. You stop staying in places that don't value you. You start making decisions based on what's actually good for you, not on what will get you approval. Here's your homework. Every time you catch yourself thinking I need them to like me or I have to prove myself, stop. Remind yourself, I prefer to be liked, but I don't need it. I'm okay either way. Do this 100 times a day if you have to. Because this is the pattern breaker. This is what stops you from ending up in the same situation again. You're not trying to become arrogant or cold. You're trying to become free. Free to choose relationships and situations based on mutual value, not desperate need. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop needing approval, you actually get more of it. Because people can sense desperation, and it's repelling. But they're attracted to someone who knows their own worth and doesn't need validation. Stop chasing. Start choosing. That's the difference. When you're chasing approval, you'll take whatever scraps people give you. You'll stay where you're not wanted because at least they're giving you something, even if it's just crumbs. But when you're choosing, you evaluate whether a situation is actually good for you. And if it's not, you leave. Simple as that. I worked with a woman who spent her whole life trying to get her mother's approval. Everything she did, her career choices, her relationships, where she lived, was about trying to make her mother proud. And her mother? Never satisfied. Always critical. Always finding fault. So she stayed in this pattern for 40 years, trying harder and harder, getting more and more miserable. Finally, I asked her, what if you never get your mother's approval? What if you live your whole life, and she never says she's proud of you? Can you be okay anyway? And that question broke something open, because she'd never considered that possibility. She'd always assumed that someday, if she just tried hard enough, her mother would finally validate her. Once she accepted that she might never get that approval, and that she could be okay without it, everything changed. She stopped making decisions based on what her mother would think. She started making decisions based on what she actually wanted. And you know what? Her relationship with her mother actually improved, because she wasn't desperate anymore. She wasn't constantly seeking validation. She was just being herself. That's the power of unconditional self-acceptance. It frees you from the prison of other people's opinions. And once you're free, you can actually have genuine relationships based on mutual respect, not need. But here's what's going to happen when you try to leave. People are going to push back. They're going to question you. They're going to make you feel guilty. And your brain is going to say, see, you're being selfish. You should stay. Let's prepare you for this. First, understand why they're pushing back. It's not because you're wrong. It's because your leaving is inconvenient for them. They benefit from you staying. They're not thinking about what's good for you. They're thinking about what they'll lose. This doesn't make them evil. It makes them human. But it also means their objections aren't evidence that you should stay. They're just evidence that your leaving affects them. Second, expect the guilt trips. How could you do this to us? After everything we've done for you, you're being ungrateful. You're abandoning us. This is manipulation. They're trying to make you responsible for their feelings. You're not. You're responsible for treating people decently, which you can do while still leaving. But you're not responsible for making them happy at the expense of your own well-being. When someone tries to guilt you, here's what you say. Internally first, out loud if necessary. I hear that this is hard for you, but this is the right decision for me. That's it. Don't defend. Don't over-explain. Don't apologize for doing what's right for you. Third, watch for the subtle stuff. Sometimes the pushback isn't obvious. It's the disappointed look, the cold shoulder, the passive-aggressive comments, the sudden niceness designed to make you reconsider. Don't fall for it. These are just different forms of the same manipulation. Stay so we don't have to deal with the discomfort of you leaving. Fourth, dispute your guilt, because you're going to feel guilty. Your brain is going to say, you're hurting them. You're being selfish. You're a bad person. Here's how you dispute that. Taking care of myself isn't selfish. It's necessary. I can't set myself on fire to keep other people warm. Leaving a situation that's not working isn't cruel. Staying and becoming resentful is cruel. Repeat that until you believe it. Fifth, prepare your responses. Before you leave, write down the likely objections people will have. Then write down your responses. Practice them. This way, when they hit you with the guilt, you won't be caught off guard. Example, but we need you here. Response, I understand this creates difficulty, but I've made my decision. Example, you're being unreasonable. Response, I respect that you see it differently, but this is what I need to do. Short, firm, no room for debate. Sixth, get comfortable with disappointing people. This is huge. You can't control how people react to your choices. Some people are going to be disappointed. Some might be angry. That's their right. But it's not your problem to solve. You're not a bad person for disappointing someone. You're just a person making a choice that's right for you. The reality is this. If you live your life trying to make everyone happy, you'll make no one happy, especially not yourself. At some point, you have to choose you. And here's what I've seen over and over. The people who truly care about you, they'll come around. They might be upset initially, but they'll respect your decision. The ones who don't come around, they never actually cared about you. They cared about what you did for them. That's a painful truth, but it's a liberating one because it shows you who's worth keeping in your life. So when the pushback comes, and it will, stand firm. Not because you're stubborn, but because you've thought this through. You've disputed your irrational beliefs. You've made a logical decision. And you're not going to let someone else's discomfort override your well-being. You've got this. All right, let's bring this home. You now know why you stay where you're not wanted. You're demanding instead of preferring. You're treating wants like needs. You're believing the lie that you must have their approval, their acceptance, their validation. And that lie has kept you trapped. But now you know how to break free. You dispute the irrational belief. You question the evidence. You challenge the logic. You take action while you're still uncomfortable. You build unconditional self-acceptance so you never get stuck like this again. And you handle the pushback without caving to guilt. This isn't easy. I'm not going to tell you it is. Changing your thinking takes work. Leaving familiar situations, even miserable ones, is scary. But here's what I know. You're capable of this. You've survived everything life has thrown at you so far. You can survive this too. And here's what's on the other side. Freedom. The freedom to choose relationships and situations based on mutual respect and value, not desperate need. The freedom to walk away from places that don't serve you. The freedom to stop torturing yourself with impossible demands. You deserve that freedom, not because you've earned it, but because you're human. And every human deserves to live without being enslaved by irrational beliefs. So here's my challenge to you. Stop waiting. Stop preparing. Stop thinking about it. Do one thing today, right now, that moves you toward leaving where you're not wanted. One email, one conversation, one job application, one boundary, just one thing. Because thinking about freedom doesn't make you free. Acting makes you free. Now, if you want to go deeper on this, I got another video you need to watch. It's called The Lie Your Brain Tells You About Failure. And in it, I break down the exact irrational belief that keeps you from taking risks and trying new things. Because here's the thing. Once you leave where you're not wanted, you're going to face new opportunities. And if you're still believing lies about failure, you're going to sabotage yourself before you even start. In that video, I show you how to demolish the fear of failure using the same disputation technique we just covered. But I take it even deeper. I show you how to actually welcome failure, use it, and stop letting it control your decisions. It's the perfect next step after this one. So click on that video right now. Don't wait. Because the momentum you have right now, that's valuable. Use it. Keep going. Keep disputing. Keep acting. You've got this. Now go prove it to yourself.